Good afternoon, Lisa Homa here. Hope you're all having a great day. Today we're going to be talking about just a broad overview of this course and some of the key concepts. The objectives of this lecture are to describe and define the role of the nurse in providing holistic care for patients undergoing all of the key concepts in this course: chronic pain, palliative care, hospice, end-of-life care. So for those of you who perhaps are action junkies, and I could say that from a personal standpoint of being a trauma nurse for a very long time, I did not like any of this end-of-life care stuff, didn't think it was important, and was more focused on, if your leg was falling off or other things like that. So this was not an area that I had any interest as an action junkie. If you are in any way, shape, or form dreading taking this course because of those same reasons, and you think this is not important and it doesn't matter, well, I'm here to give you some data and to show some metrics that may sway you in a different direction. So why are we taking this course, and who cares about all of this? The latest statistics tell us that 40% of our new to practice nurses, so that's you in your first year of practice once you graduate with either your diploma or your associates, are leaving the discipline of nursing because of unmet moral distress. We're going to talk all about moral distress in week 5 of the course, but one of the things about it, you can see there's 3 domains that comprise moral distress. It's basically you as the nurse know the right thing to do, but you have internal or external constraints that keep you from doing the right thing. And usually this comes into the ethical and moral areas of nursing administration, or things going on that you have little or no control. What we have found, so I worked with the teams at Penn, and we identified in a research study that this is a national BSN curricular gap. Essentially, when you're in your associates or your diploma program, the main focus, and I've heard this from program directors from those programs, that they just want our nurses to learn to be competent and to learn the fundamentals. All this other stuff is not anything they care about at the time, and I get it, that's their priority, but it makes it a pretty good and a very high priority for us in BSN programs to ensure that we satisfy these gaps. We have found that students that come from the best, even UPenn School of Nursing, they come out and they have a gap. We notice the gap there, especially with those students. We found gaps in educational preparation of 4 targeted areas: care of patients with chronic pain, palliative care, and end-of-life care management. Let's talk about chronic illness management. This is also an area, if you are a nurse with your hair on fire and you dread this, is chronic illness management. But I'm here to tell you that 30% of our geriatric population have chronic illnesses. And we are stuck with this. This is something we have to learn. And one of the most shocking things that I found in research, in exploring the literature, doing my own research for a research study that I have done most recently, have found that our healthcare workers, hold on to your hat, so there's a certain type of stigma that is related to chronic illness management. It's called health-related stigma. Healthcare workers are the #1 contributors to stigmatizing individuals who suffer from multiple chronic conditions. That is the fancy schmancy word in the United States that we call for a person who has 2 to 3 ongoing or subsequent concurrent chronic illnesses happening at the same time. So that's our person with heart disease, diabetes, COPD. This is a common thing in the UK and in Australia, where they have very strong, there's a lot of research in those cultures. They call this multiple morbidity. So it's slightly different, but if you see it in those 2 places, I wanted to explain the key terms to you. What does this mean? It is so strong how we treat our patients. And this is not just nurses, this is the way providers, so that could be nurse practitioner, PAs, physicians. They also are indicated in this population. It's so strong that it is now deemed a social determinant of health. If our patients are stigmatized in any way or discriminated, we know that they don't come back and they won't seek care. If you tell them to come back, hey, come back and get your blood pressure rechecked or your labs redrawn for an hemoglobin A1C, they just won't do it because the treatment and the stigma is so bad, it's not worth it to them to come back despite the risks to their medical condition. It's just unacceptable standard of care. This needs to change. There's all kinds of funding at the NIH right now in these areas. Again, diversity, access to care, all those things have come full circle over the last year in our current climate and the landscape. But this is also one area that we cannot forget and we need to address. And what we have found in the latest research in the last 5 years, the overall theme for all of these issues is unmet pain management in all three populations. And one of the most shocking things for me, so again, my focus has been on neuroscience and trauma, but one of the most shocking things for me is to learn that studies are saying that patients who have congestive heart failure, that is a painful process. How many times do we discount patients' pain in those areas? It's a fascinating place where we have not studied, and we're finding out a great deal from these patients. Unmet patient need is pain control. That's the number one thing that we are seeing. It needs to be delivered in a manner that promotes a high quality of life, administered in a respectful and non-judgmental manner. And what do I mean by that? In one of our case studies that you're working through with the assignments is a sickle cell patient. Why did I pick sickle cell? Because they are stigmatized. That's a chronic illness that those patients are stigmatized 9 times out of 10. They are called that they are pain management seekers. They come in asking for the Dilaudid because they're patients who have this terribly painful chronic disease process. And last time I checked, it's unacceptable for a nurse to say that that patient isn't having pain. The only person that can describe or state subjectively their pain is the patient. The rest of us, whether we feel like they're abusing the system or not, it is not our call. Pain is the 5th vital sign, and we need to be non-judgmental in this area and advocate our patients, because that is what we are called to do by the ANA, by the Nurse Practice Act. All those things deem us to be advocates. Regardless of our opinion, we have to stuff it and do the right thing and advocate for them anyway. Is it another uncomfortable area for nurses? Is the dreaded, uncomfortable patient conversation. And I've worked with really tough ICU nurses for a long time. Warm, fuzzy, squishy, palliative care kind of conversations, not really the kind of conversations that we care to have, right? Let me give you an example of the types of things you can hear. And I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to provide a different perspective so that you can arrive at perhaps accepting or considering or keeping an open mind to a new perspective, or you won't be, and that's up to you. Here's the uncomfortable conversation that nurses get pretty frequently. Patient says, I have 2 weeks left to live. I'm stopping chemotherapy and I'm going home to die. And you know what's weird about it is the patient seems okay about it and they're happy about it. That makes nurses who try to keep everybody alive the most uncomfortable thing. The question is, how will you respond to that patient? Will you give your meds and get the heck out of the room as quickly as you can? Run, Forrest, run, get out of there. You could. You absolutely could do that. No one could blame you, I guess, if you did. And it may be something, I don't know if I've ever done that, but it could be something you've already done. Or, in the midst of the chaos, there's always opportunity. It's an opportunity to be human, to accept, to acknowledge that it's a vulnerable place in your life, in this person's life, and to acknowledge that death, dying, palliative care, all this stuff is just a natural course, a next phase in a person's life. Death is a phase of our life. It's uncomfortable. Our culture doesn't like to talk about it, but guess what? It happens to all of us, whether you want to or not. If you embrace it, you face it head on, you will become an exceptional nurse. No question about it. Interactions with patients can be as beautiful or as horrible as you make it. Just being honest, being at the bedside and doing trauma for 28 years, it sure can be. Chronic pain, those patients are a pain in the butt. We call them boomerangs. We have all types of stereotypical names for taking care of them, but you know what? They're patients, they're humans. And you can make time with that patient as painful or as beautiful as you can think about, can you dream about making it. Just another phase or chapter in their life. It's an opportunity to bond with your patient. The one thing that makes us or differentiates us, the nursing discipline, from all other healthcare disciplines, guess what? Nurse-patient relationship. You don't hear PAs talking about no PA to patient relationship. They get in, they get out. But if you want to be a nurse, you have an opportunity to build, develop, grow the nurse-patient relationship. It is the one thing that makes us very distinct from all other disciplines in healthcare. It's an opportunity. You don't have to take it, but it is an opportunity. And if you do it, your patients will love you for it. It will make you unforgettable. It does take courage to care. We know that for so long. Countless patients who I pulled the plug, and again, that's a disrespectful term, but just saying it. This is what I've learned about death and dying in a nutshell. Regardless of your religious background, what you believe, if you're an atheist, if you're Christian, if you're non-Christian, I don't care about any of those things. But I will say the universal language, regardless of how you feel spiritually, culturally, in my mind, again, I'm inserting my bias here, but the one thing I have observed over time that is timeless amongst all patients is this one squishy, nurturing word called love. And so the one thing I would implore you to do as a nurse is to send your patient home, and I'm talking how whatever your belief system is celestially, send your patient home no matter how hard, no matter how vulnerable it makes you, send them home in love. And that is the one common thread amongst everything I've seen in my 28 years of being a neurotrauma nurse. It doesn't matter how awful the family is. It doesn't matter who disagrees. That doesn't matter. Your job as a nurse is your duty is to the patient no matter how crazy the family is or what's happening around you. You need to advocate, support, and protect your patient and honor the patient's wishes. No matter however they declare it, you are responsible for ensuring that that is carried out no matter how hard it is. And again, send that patient home in love. That is our role in this mess of chronic pain, palliative care, hospice, and end-of-life care. That's the way to do it. Throughout this PowerPoint and throughout this course, I'm going to show you how to do it. And I'm not the only person that believes this. I've consulted with multiple specialists in hospice and end-of-life care, and they believe very similarly as I have come to learn in my own experiences as a nurse and sending home several of my family members home to where I believe spiritually they have gone. Sending them home in love is definitely the way to go. And if you do that, if you respect them, if you're part of the process, you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you will have no regrets. If you don't do it, you could let the family down, that you could let the patient down. You may have gotten into a fight with a coworker because you disagree on the plan of care. And I can tell you that is 100% happened to me. I've already taken a patient's care to the ethics committee at the head of a hospital and created an entire storm. And you know what? I don't regret it. I'm proud that I did it. I was a brand new nurse in the ICU when I did it, and it was 100% the right thing. And you know what? All those haters and naysayers said, they learned to respect me, and I became a huge patient advocate as a result of that experience. Whether this happens to you, again, you can avoid this in your professional life as a nurse. I know a lot of nurses who have never had a dying patient. They work in an area, whatever, they just have never had that experience. But I'm here to tell you that whether you have managed to successfully avoid these issues as a nurse, it will come to bite you somewhere along the way. And as you age and you get older, it could definitely happen to you in your personal experience. And guess who families draw upon when somebody in your family is very, very ill or they are dying? They call on the nurse. If this hasn't already happened to you, it sure as heck will. So prepare yourself. They will expect you to know everything. These issues definitely happen to all of us. We are not immune to end of life. It happens somewhere along the way. If you show and display courage, you will grow as a person. Did you know that when you grow as a person, it's not a comfortable process? If you feel uncomfortable as heck in this course, I'm proud of you. I also feel accomplished that I have succeeded in my mission, because you don't grow if you feel comfortable. You may inspire someone else to change. I went through an end-of-life experience he was really honestly one of the most pain-in-the-butt patients I've ever had, and he did pass away, and I was with him and his family. But you know what happened? Years later, I got a note sent to me from the patient's granddaughter, who became a nurse as a result of the experience. She was so moved and so inspired, she became a nurse. Poor thing, we'll have to talk her out of that later, but that's a whole other thing. You will be honoring the dying wish of a person. You'll be leaving a lasting impression with that family forever. You may have peace knowing that you tried, no matter however things ended up. It may be the next step in your personal or professional journey. All of us are on a mission here in life, and this could be the next step to the next place that you want to go. So what does it mean to be an advocate for a patient? And the reason I mention this, so you may have heard this in your other program, but the reason I'm harping on it is I recently had my father-in-law pass away. Not getting into a lot of things, but I observed, unfortunately, some of the worst nursing care I have ever observed in my life. He was in the COVID unit. He didn't have COVID, but he was in the COVID unit. None of the nurses advocated for my father-in-law. It was just such a disappointing moment in my life. And I certainly let them know what I thought about everything. I want to drive this home to you. Protect your patients. It's our job to protect our patients from, well, idiots. R1 residents. But if you work in acute care, you know that the scariest day on earth is July 1 when the new residents come on the floor. Man, that means protecting your patient from all them too. So that means putting the crime tape at the door, and whoever goes in there, buddy, you better know what you're doing or you're not touching that patient. Provide information to help patients make their own informed decisions. Not our job to make them believe what we believe. Our job, once again, is to give them the information that they need so that they can make an informed decision. Advocacy also means prioritizing their care. It also means ensuring that their care is completed. And this may sound really crazy to you, but if the patient wants to die, then darn it, you better make sure that that patient gets their wish and things are withdrawn in the appropriate way that that patient wants, and that patients' rights are not violated. And I've unfortunately seen this a lot in my career. It has gotten better over the years, but these are all the areas of advocacy. And if you don't know where or how to do it, this is somewhere that you need to escalate. That means going to a charge nurse, going to your nurse manager, and or if you're wherever you work has some type of ethics committee that can help make this happen and show you how to do it. Once the patient reaches the phase of palliative care, the nurse becomes the completer of several types of checklists that the patient needs to complete. And at this point, the focus changes, and now quality of life is everything. And what do I mean by checklists? The checklists are simply, do they have all the mechanisms in place if they die at any moment? You have to start changing the focus and expecting that at some point they are going to die. Quality of life meaning, do they have their living will in place so that they can leave their family something? Are they ready? Do they want to talk about funerals? Do they want to talk about pain management is very important. Who do they want to spend their time with? So the most important thing is keeping them out of the hospital as much as they possibly can so they can live to the fullest extent of their life when they are at home or wherever it is that they want to be. Here's getting your affairs in order. I cannot tell you how many nurses do not have a durable power of attorney for healthcare. You got to be kidding me. They're not that hard. If you need one, I have a blank template. Being a med mal and a catastrophic personal injury nurse and having my own practice for 13 years on the side, I have all these documents. Reach out, send me an email, I'll give them to you for free. All you have to do is sign them in front of a notary. You have to pay the notary fee. That's it. A pulse form is a whole other thing. If you have a loved one that goes into chronic care or palliative care, we can talk about that, but that's also something I can get for you. Determine code status. This is the time. Hopefully you will make these patients a no code. And then make sure they have a living will. You can get these on livingwill.com for $30. I also probably have one of those I can give to you for free. Again, all you need is a notary, but make sure you get your affairs in order. You yourself as the nurse, and you help your patients. Once you go through it, you'll be a much stronger advocate and can help your patients with this process too. Role of the nurse in chronic illness and palliative care. Minimize hospitalization so that the patients have the quality of life that they care and they want the most. You want to do this and get all the stakeholders. So how many patients do you know who have like 3 or 4 chronic illnesses that they're navigating all at the same time, and they're all on a different page? It drives me absolutely crazy as a nurse. I just want to slap people around. So get everybody together, create a meaningful and thoughtful plan to get your patient out of the hospital and stay at home as long as they can. Maximize comfort. We know that chronic illness is extraordinarily painful, so we have to advocate and make sure these yahoos are not cheating them out of the pain medicine that they need. Symptom management is critical. 40% of patients said their pain management is not adequate for like a strong quality of life. That's pathetic. We have all these great drugs. For goodness sakes, they're not going to take them to the OR to surgically management. Well, then darn it, give them the drugs. That stuff makes me so angry. But there are other symptoms that are also uncontrollable and keep them from being comfortable. Restless legs, palpitations, all these things on the list. This is where you need, I don't know if it's a primary care provider, but you need somebody who is willing to take the time to look at all these things and try to maximize their quality of life. It's time to expect more from our providers. I cannot say this enough. And I'll tell you what, if they don't want to give that patient the time of the day, then guess what? You're out of there. It's time to get a new primary care provider. It is definitely time. But all I'm saying is if your patient is not getting anywhere with their current provider, it's time to change. Multimodal pain management. There is a whole awesome thing. I was actually at the lecture that I recorded and put up at the course. It is amazing what can be done with pain management if we use a comprehensive approach. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. You can see it in the lecture. But this is what our chronic pain, our palliative care, and our end-of-life care patients need. Maintain independence for as long as possible. So optimize everything. Activities, if you can keep them at home longer by making sure they're strong enough to keep up their activities of daily living, then get PT consult for them. If they have chronic pain in their back or they have something else or tumor development, if they can have epidural steroid injections, basically that's taking a needle and putting the nerve to sleep in their back. If that can provide them with some comfort when they work, boy, do they work really well, and they can last up to 2 years. Bring in OT, so occupational therapists, to assist with maximizing and optimizing their ADLs and their functioning, and maximize their medical therapies. If a poor patient is living with chronic pain all the time, then darn it, put them on one of those drugs that helps minimize their chest pain to give them a little bit of peace and comfort. And that's all I have. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day.